So, Emmy 1 of 4, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about how we met and then our journey up to becoming parents. Maybe how that's changed our relationship.
This episode is called Our Story. It's another night in the Crippen household and it's time to unwind, have a break from the little one who's currently away at nursery. We don't send her away at nights. We're recording this in the day.
Although that'll be good. Night nursery. Ugh.
This is the tale of a husband and wife who do a light-hearted, family-friendly podcast and chats all about parenting with babies and toddlers. Welcome to our community of listeners out there, all 10 of you who follow along. Join the conversation this week coming from our imaginary cosy conservatory with rickety floral patterned squashy chairs. Turn up the electric heater and let's settle in for a chit-chat. Do you like our little location this week?
I'm not sure. It sounds a bit drafty.
Well, wrap a blanket round you.
Thank you.
Free blankets provided. My name is still Elliot. I'm Baba to our 3-year-old daughter Lily and get in trouble all the time for playing overly dangerous and lively games with her.
True. You play dangerous games.
Sitting across from me is...
Emma, also Mama to Lily. And I play nice and creative games and try to make them mildly educational.
We're also expecting another baby girl. By the time you're listening to this, when it comes out, she's due in a few days, probably. Yeah. She might even already be here.
Who knows?
We're getting very close to the end.
And she's pretty big.
Yeah.
So it's anyone's guess.
Da-ding, da-ding.
That scared me.
It's parenting achievement time.
Do-do-do. Got to think of an achievement now.
Yeah, it's the little segment where we share a parenting fail story or just a relatable moment of what's going on in our lives to see, share that we don't always get everything right and things fall apart for us as well. Just parenting life, really.
Normally, every week on a Friday, me and Lily meet up with our friend Vicky and her little girl Macy, and then she's got a baby brother now, and we're going to Knaresborough and go to the Hungry Caterpillar. This week, A, the Hungry Caterpillar is closed, and B, Vicky's off on a course. Both of us haven't yet broken it to the girls. We're cowards. So I don't know if it's an achievement, but it's joint cowardice. Do you have a fail you'd like to add into?
Can we return to the topic of food? It's a little parenting achievement that we return to quite regularly.
It is.
It's not going well. We did a whole episode ages ago on beige food, and things have not improved since then.
No.
This week, and maybe last week, I think she's just been eating cream cheese bagels for the last 2 weeks. I can barely think of anything else she's eaten.
And the only thing that gives me hope is that I'm like, well, cream cheese is, some kind of protein.
But I remember we were watching Tractor Ted a little while ago. So there's an episode all about carrots and them harvesting carrots. Yeah. I was saying to Lily, do you like carrots, Lily? And she was going, no, never eat carrots. And I was going, what? You're never going to eat carrots? And she was like, yes. I was like, great. So yeah, that kind of sums up how it's going with food.
You know when they say you're meant to lead by example? Why hasn't this had an effect that Mummy eats it?
She doesn't pick up on stuff like that. But what she does pick up on is like our little sayings and expressions. She's basically like turning into a mini version of us. So it's so hilarious now that she parrots back phrases to us. And we're like, where did you pick that up? Yeah. Do you want to say, there's loads of examples about this, but I think, is it yesterday or the day before?
She's going, 1993, Emma Crippen. And I was like, how do you know I was born in 1993?
We were both staring at her going, how have you picked up this information? You're like listing it like factually, 1993, Emma Crippen. It was just like, what?
I don't even think she knows what the number is. But
no.
she just repeating it. And I thought, goodness, I must have for prescriptions and stuff been saying my date of birth and name so often recently.
She often comes up to me and just randomly starts stroking my nose and going, it's okay, calm down. It's all right.
And then she was,
Breathe.
breathe, which is very annoying.
This is what we do with her.
Which is what we do with her, but it doesn't often work at the minute. Last night we were laughing and we were sat in the big bed reading stories, and then she decided she was going to put... She's got like a little fluffy pajama top with a pocket in the front.
Yeah.
And she was putting like her shoes, a Batman mask, and she was pretending, because her tummy then looked big, that it was the baby.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
she was repeating like, I need to go, oh, pug.
And she was going, ow, stop kicking me.
Kicking me.
Anyway, there we go. There's a plethora? Plethora? No.
Plethora.
I went too big there. I
You
went
did.
for a big
You
word.
went for a big word and you could execute it.
I'm not good with big words. I was too ambitious. A plethora.
There's a range of stories for you.
There we go. Do any of those parenting achievements, parenting fails resonate with you? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Get in touch over on social media, on our community group chat, or anywhere really. There's all the links in the description down below or on our webpage.
I was going to go, we're everywhere.
We're everywhere.
You'll find us.
We just pop up. Go, hello.
Hi. Do you have a story?
Leave the parenting to your partner for a bit and let's get your tired brain in gear for a little chit chat with us all about us. So it's a slightly different episode. It's kind of a parenting adjacent topic. In this period, like we're at the very end of pregnancy, and we don't have a lot else to talk about really, and we kind of want to escape from that for a bit. We're like very soon we're going to be thrown right back into the thick of parenting, and there'll be loads of
then we'll have tons of stories for you.
Lots to talk about in terms of babies and toddlers. But we thought in this little stopgap in the middle, we would dive a bit deeper into us and share some of our stories, and we can have a bit of fun doing that, and hopefully you can enjoy getting to know us a bit more. Hopefully we'll tie it back into parenting at the end of the episode and the story, as we'll get more into...
But if anyone knows what we're like, we'll probably forget and go on.
This is the aim, is to bring this conversation back round into maybe how our relationship has changed and evolved since having kids. But we haven't before told much of our personal story because we've kind of always focused on parenting.
Yes.
We thought it might be quite interesting to chat a little bit about how we met and our journey through like getting engaged and married and all sorts of things. Yeah. Right, well, back to the beginning, I suppose, where we start.
It isn't a meet cute. We didn't like stumble into each other in the street as we're going to a bakery or something.
I think it's more funny that it's not that way. Do you know what I mean? It might not be romantic, but I think our story is more funny.
I think it's more realistic.
Yeah.
We met at church, didn't we?
Yeah, probably not a surprise if you're
not
a long time listener.
You know, and they go, oh, it was love at first sight. I had no... Not in a nasty way.
Yeah. What are you saying about me, Emma? What are you saying?
Because I know a lot of people go, oh, and I knew from the moment I saw them that was going to be my husband. And I'm like, that was not my experience.
No, I don't think we had this at all. No. Even, I would say this phase went on for quite a long time in terms of, even when we were dating, I'm not sure we were. Like...
I think we like enjoyed each other's company. But we weren't like, oh, this is definitely the person.
Yeah. We were definitely like a friends to romantic kind of relationship.
I'd just been on my year abroad because I was doing a language degree.
This is at university when I was like 19. Yeah. And so that few age gap, you know, the difference seems more stark at that age. I would say
also, I do think women do generally like mature quicker.
You're basically saying I was immature.
Yes.
I was young and immature.
The first thing I thought, because I met him and his best friend Luke.
Yep.
And the first thing I thought was, very immature. But I think this is in the context of I'd been abroad by myself in a country where I didn't know anybody. So I remember coming back. We met them at church. I think they were baking for something.
It was a Freshers' Fair bake thing. We were part of like the university society for the Methodist Church. It's a bit niche. And we were...
My impression of you then wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
You guys seemed quite nice. I think there was a freshers event where we were meeting in cafe or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this is when I thought you and Luke were very immature.
Yeah.
They were sat there, and I think they wanted the waitress to close a window or something, or a door. And they were like discussing, I don't want to say it. Well, I don't want to say it. Well, I don't want to talk. And I was like, I will talk to her. And I remember at the time going, this is ridiculous. Why can't one of them just... And I thought, why are they even discussing it? It's not a big deal. Like,
I would say we were young and things have improved, but I think both of us, we have quite a lot of social anxiety.
Yeah.
We're quite nervous and kind of shy people. And more so back then.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we weren't a fan of talking to strangers.
No, I just remember at the time being like, I can't believe they're having a discussion who's gonna. And I thought, well, I'll talk to them. I don't care. So my first impression that he was quite childish.
Yeah.
Well, not like he was childish. I mean, there were aspects that made him childish.
Yeah. I mean, I was very childish
Yeah.
at the time. I was quite sheltered. I've had a sheltered upbringing. And
I think that's what made us good friends, is that I found like your company very enjoyable. Like you were very
Yeah.
fun to be around.
Yeah.
It's just at the time, you know, I thought I'd maybe be with someone who was like older and wiser. So I didn't necessarily put you in the category of like, potential dating material.
Yeah.
You were more like, he's like really funny and a nice friend.
Yeah. And I was thinking, because like I met you and Becky at the same time.
Yes.
You both went to the same university in Aberystwyth. Yeah, we should mention that. I don't think we have it.
Yes.
We were in Aberystwyth in Wales.
It's a beautiful place. If anyone
Yeah,
wants to go
absolutely
around
lovely. Yeah, we both really enjoyed our time there.
there. We did.
I always find it funny because obviously like you're an identical quadruplet.
Yeah.
But at the time, and I met both of you together, I didn't even register that you were sisters, let alone that you were identical.
There's such an Elliot thing to do as well.
And I think because, I don't know, just my like dyslexic brain, the idea that like two sisters would be at the same uni and come to the same event, it just seemed so bizarre to me that I didn't even consider it a possibility.
Yeah, true.
It did mean like later, because like we met a few people through that Freshers Week. And
Yeah.
in my head, as much as I was being really childish, in my head, I think I was president of the society at the time.
Yeah.
So I was like trying to be like, we need to show a good time to all these new students. And like, in my head, I was trying to be like a
mature.
leader. But
Yeah, that's not what I got the impression of.
Yeah. Looking back then, like after that week, I couldn't really distinguish between you and Becky because like we'd have conversations and I was
Yeah.
like, which one? Like, because you became then more involved
Yes.
with the group.
Becky always reminds me of this now in our relationship. She's always like, I was there when you met.
Yeah. True. It's a favourite thing of your mum, particularly, to say that we met over the coffee pot at church.
Yeah. Which isn't true.
It isn't true. I mean, we did do a lot of like serving tea and coffee
coffees together,
at church.
yeah.
So yeah, we hung around a lot with this Christian group and then got to know each other and became friends.
Yeah.
I finally worked out who you were because Becky stopped coming to stuff.
Becky stopped coming quite quickly. There was only me left.
But again, I never considered you like a dating partner or like a potential romantic
But it
interest.
was quite quick, considering how we
actually.
hadn't considered each other dating material for quite a while.
But do you want to explain, like, the reason it kind of happened was because our friends pushed us together. Yeah. We were basically, like, set up.
Yes, yeah. But which I actually think is quite, from talking to quite a common story.
Oh, really?
Of people being like, those two, like other people, would really suit each other.
Yeah.
But they're not doing anything. Maybe we should kind of push them in the right direction.
So it'd been a few months like between September and Christmas.
Yeah.
And we were like becoming good friends in the group.
Yeah.
And like both of our best friends.
Yes.
My best friend Luke and your best friend Rachel, who I think we've both mentioned on the podcast before.
Yeah.
Still our best friends.
Yep.
Best friends since uni.
We haven't changed our best friend.
Yeah.
We're loyal.
Yeah. They basically conspired
They did.
to try and arrange situations where we'd end up alone together.
Yeah. Well, I think that's maybe why we were put on tea and coffee quite often together.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was Luke's doing.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to schedule them to be on tea and coffee together.
I remember at the time, because we had some Korean students, and I thought, get put on tea and coffee in one of them, maybe I'll learn some Korean.
So you were really disappointed to constantly
I was
be
it
with
was you
me
because
all
you
the
were
time.
really fun and you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Because I was quite new to the church, so I was worried I'd do it wrong. So I quite liked that you were there to go like, we do this and this and this. Because I always worried like I'd be with somebody who didn't know and I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing either. But I remember at the time, because I'm a linguist, I thought, oh, what a great opportunity to learn like another language. If like maybe they do like, I will say I think Korean's quite a big step from European languages. So
True.
I don't know if I could have managed.
I remember we went for a very awkward walk
We did.
along the seafront because we were like, we're going to actually have to talk about this.
Well, and do you remember, I won't name them, but one of our friends tried to join us.
Yes.
And we were both like, we're trying to have a talk about what we'd like.
They didn't realise that we were purposely going off for like a private conversation, and they were just like, "Oh, well, we're accompanying you," and we're like, "We're gonna go together and walk along the seafront." And they were like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll join you. That sounds lovely."
And they're really nice as well. Like it was on any other occasion, I'd be like, "Lovely, come with us."
And we were trying to drop hints.
Yeah.
But we're both too
We're
nice.
too polite.
We didn't want to be like mean and go like, "Go away."
But I also didn't, because I didn't know where the conversation was going. I didn't want to go, oh no, this is like us discussing if we like each other or not, what we're planning to do. So I think we walked a long time before they ended up leaving, and then I was a bit exhausted. To be honest,
quite late at night because we'd been to like an evening event,
evening church event.
Yeah. It was like a social gathering thing. Except, we weren't going out drinking. We were just sat around having cake and discussing stuff. We were pretty rubbish at all this. I think mainly because neither of us we hadn't had relationships before. I'd not had a girlfriend. You'd not had a boyfriend. No. And so we were kind of new to this, had no idea what we were doing.
I think in hindsight, we should have just we were quite happy.
So this is where the intervention of our best friends failed.
Yes.
At least we found it to be unhelpful because both of them had insisted to us before. They knew we were going on this walk, and they basically gave us a prep talk each in our separate houses. And they said, you better come back from that conversation knowing where you stand.
Yeah, and Rachel was basically like, you need to know you're dating them. It needs to be like official. You need to know where you stand, which I get from a woman's point of view, those who need. But it put a lot of pressure on us to kind of make a decision.
Yeah. So we were like, we need to make a decision. And looking back, I think, we both have said it would have been better if we'd maybe said, we want to explore this.
Yeah.
Why don't we
Let's do like one step at a time.
Hang out more and experiment and just see if this is going to work before feeling like we have to put a whereas
it worked out anyway, but we feel like it would have been like a slower, but maybe more like we wouldn't have felt as like rushed.
Yeah.
But it came from a good place from both our friends.
It did, definitely. And obviously, we're pretty grateful.
We've got married and had children now, so we're very grateful for the tampering.
I can't remember how that conversation ended, but in my mind, it was almost a weirdly formal, let's shake hands and yes, we are now officially boyfriend and girlfriend. Okay,
I
good
remember
night.
you said something really cute.
Did I?
Where you were like, oh, if I didn't know you already, now I'd ask for your number or something.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. So I remember
me trying to be funny.
You were. So we pretended to give each other our numbers and be like, yeah, I'll see you later.
That does sound a lot like me when I was back then. I tried to break the tension a lot with weird humor, little being silly.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah.
You ended up getting the girl.
Yeah. We then kind of had the problem that I couldn't get over this kind of silliness. So a lot of our relationship was built around our friendship and silliness. And I then hid behind that a bit because I think we were both a bit uncomfortable about how to progress.
I think that's true.
We went on some dates and stuff. Do you want to say where I took you on our first date?
I did not count this as a date, just FYI.
Well, I was... Okay, you explain, then I'll justify it.
Right, okay. Elliot was... I don't know why. He was going to a CU event.
So that's
Christian Union.
Christian Union. So another church thing, but in a different church.
Yeah. And he invited me along. Just FYI, I did not consider this a date at all. For him saying this is our first date. That's not what I thought this was.
I mean, it wasn't really a date, but in my head, I was so nervous and worried about it all. I was trying to play out things like really safe. And I thought, what would be most comfortable for us both? And like, I needed like basically a church event where we could go
Just us.
and just spend time together, but not alone together. And
Yeah.
also it wouldn't feel like a date. So
I think
therefore it
also
wouldn't
it's
feel awkward.
quite hard in ABBA, but to me that wasn't.
It's the
awkward.
first time I like invited you to go somewhere with me,
True.
just you and me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't count it as a date.
Just because it wasn't terribly romantic.
But to my little, like, whatever, 19-year-old self,
Yes,
I
yeah.
was, like, really nervous. I was like, I'm actually inviting a girl
That's
to do
true.
something with me.
Yeah.
So our official first date, we drove out to Nanty Arion, which
Yeah.
was like a little nature reserve a few miles out of...
I call it the
town.
red kite place.
Yeah, they have a lot of red kites there, and they do, like, red kite feeding. We used to go there occasionally.
yeah.
And, like, you do little walks and all sorts. So, like, we walked around the lake there, and there's a cafe, and we went and had
Yeah.
hot chocolate, and it was a nice little time.
It's our kind of thing we like doing now.
Yeah. So the first time we kind of done something
Just
alone
us two,
together,
yeah.
just us two, and like I remember being really relieved that it was like really easy to talk, and that basically I just sat there and you chatted away at me for like all day.
That's one of the good things about me. You don't have to worry.
Yeah. So I think it helped that we were like kind of friends before we were
Yeah.
romantically involved.
And I think it helps because we knew a lot about each other already.
Yeah,
So
and you were
didn't have to do
teaching
that.
me all about like northern expressions
was,
and
yeah.
phrases. And I was being silly, making up funny stories about
Oh, yeah.
giants and things that used to live in the thing, and
Yes, yeah.
all sorts of weird, wacky things. So yeah, we dated for quite a while through the rest of our
We
uni
did, yeah.
uni time. I came to yours for lambing.
We did. Big step in the relationship.
Yeah,
Coming for lambing.
and then you came on holiday with me and my
did,
parents.
yeah.
That was quite a big
Switzerland.
thing as well.
That was.
You know, basically meeting each other's parents. That happened like pretty early on
It
for
did
both of
happen
us.
pretty early on, yeah.
Because, you know, our parents came to visit us at uni, and
Yep.
we had to be like, we are dating. Here's my girlfriend. Here's my boyfriend.
Yeah. I was very worried about Elliot meeting my family.
Yeah. Vice versa.
But I remember being like, they're very loud.
Mm.
Because people don't know, obviously, he's an only child. I have a huge family. Not all of them came at once, but he quickly met like most of my sisters,
Yeah.
met my parents.
Yeah.
And I remember like always saying to them all, like, just be on your best behaviour. Don't get too wild.
I think this is what you were warning them when you brought me to the farm for lambing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that was pretty intense. And even then, I remember at the time being like, it's really loud and intense. And you were like, I've told everyone this is like really
I
tame
was like,
for
this
my
is like
family.
really quiet for everybody. Like, if you think this is loud, you just wait.
Yeah. I mean, there's hundreds of little stories we could get into around this time, isn't there? But I mean, I don't know what's interesting, what isn't interesting.
I do think we did quite well. Like, I think for most people, we probably were quite quick. But I was going to say, I think for the Christian community, we were quite slow.
That's true.
Because I was very mindful, like, a lot of people I knew got married very young.
Yeah, I remember. It is a problem. I mean, a lot of Christians we know met at church and got married, met at uni, got married. I remember when I first went to the freshers' stall for the Methodist Society in my first week of being at university.
Yeah.
And the then president, she was lovely. She really took me under her wing. But like one of the first things she said to me, and she was like really bouncy and would say like, you know, anything that occurred to her. And like, it was a bit daunting that one of the first things she said was like, oh, you know, most people meet their wife at the Methodist Society. I was like, okay, I've not really come to find a wife.
I've just come to make friends. I mean, it's true.
But it's true, yeah. Like nearly everyone we know, then we didn't buck the trend.
No, but I was saying for most of, I think our Christian friend group, we got married later than others.
True. Like it wasn't straight out of uni.
Yeah.
And we went through like some rough patches in the
Yeah.
middle there, like at uni, and then after uni as well. Like
Well, I
working
think
out.
after uni, I just wasn't sure with us both getting jobs and stuff if it would, you know what I mean? It
was
would
that
be
it was
feasible.
that phase, like kind of both times working out like, is this serious? Is this you know, like the first time it was kind of like, are we just friends? Like like we've called ourselves, we've said we're in a relationship, but are we just hanging out, or like is this going anywhere?
Yeah, is this more serious? And then at the end of uni, I was like, oh, I really like him. And I'd love him to be part of my life, but I just don't know where my job's going to go. And
well, it did. Our jobs took us to opposite ends of the country.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this is a long distance relationship. Will this last?
Will it work? Because long distance doesn't really work.
Yeah. But like, what's the solution here? Like, so that was certainly a challenging time to work all that. And then, it's at that same kind of point in life where you've just left uni and you're trying to work out what you're doing with your life anyway. With your career and with, I mean, less so for you because you went straight into the job that you have now.
The job that I have now, yeah.
I mean, I've always been more of like a generalist. So I have a lot of interest in a lot of different areas and I've never like specialized, and it's then tricky to know which avenue to pursue. So for those that don't know, my degree at university was in countryside management and I worked for the National Trust for a while. So nothing to do with the church and nothing to do with digital and social media that I do now. And that in itself was completely different to what I did at A-levels as well. So just each step I kind of took a completely different turn. And at that point I was, really didn't know.
I think that's more typical though, because they said most people don't use their degrees in their normal jobs.
Yeah, I think it's true.
I think I'm just like an oddity because it was more specialised, I guess.
And I suppose once you've done a master's, there's a little bit more certainty at that stage, that is the kind of area that you're, unless you're just particularly into academic learning.
Yeah, well, some people just love academia, don't they?
Yeah.
But for me, then it was like a clear area that I was going to go into.
Yeah. I mean, briefly, touch on this. You were going to go and join the Navy.
I was very keen as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of crazy.
It was, yeah. And I think that would have meant probably that we wouldn't have ended up together.
Well, definitely. Yeah.
I'd have been away so often. I don't see how it would have worked.
I mean, join the Navy as an officer and as a, would you be using your translation skills?
I would have, yes. I still would have used my translation skills.
Right. So that was the point.
Yeah. It would have been different from the job I do now, but it still would have been based around translation.
Right. But then, I was living up in Cumbria and you were down in London.
Yeah.
But then you moved back up to your family across. So you weren't then too far away from me.
No.
We were just the other side of the Pennines.
Because of all the Brexit stuff going on, my company was moving office anyway. So actually...
They moved their office out of London to Paris.
To Paris. And at that point, they said you could work from home and I'd just occasionally go into Paris and just see everyone.
Yeah. So it meant it was less of a long distance relationship then. We could see each other every weekend.
Yeah. You could come for lambing again.
Yeah.
When we got to the point where we decided we were going to move in together, and the caveat from my parents were I couldn't move out till lambing was done. And then I remember lambing did finish, and Mum was like, "Well, you can't move out till all the pet lambs are grown because I can't cope by myself." And Elliot was like, "Keeps getting later and later. This moving out."
It was meant to be in like March, and then like it wasn't till May, and then it was like, oh, well, we need you for like the harvest time. So it was like August, September, and I was like, I want her to come and live with me. Why is she still there?
Why is it taking so long?
The challenge for me on the flip side was, coming from a religious family, there was kind of a bit of pressure to like be engaged before we lived together.
Yeah.
Or, like some Christians think you should be married before you live together. Yeah. So there's all that kind of nonsense going on. So like there was a little bit of a kind of, that's why we were separate for a little bit. And like, I think it was kind of odd that we lived half an hour away from each other and didn't move into each other, especially when like you worked from home. And,
it's true. Yeah.
Like, but just what it was. But like, it was around that time that I think we were both very certain that we would end up together.
Yes, yeah.
And we were kind of very open about that.
We were, yeah.
I think people found it surprising.
We and then
would talk.
People almost thought we were engaged, but we were both at that point. We were like, well, we know we're going to get married at some point. We talk about the future and just very open, and we've always been. I think this we found early on in our relationship when we'd had like troubles of being like, well, where do we stand? We learned quite early on just to be very open with each other about what we wanted.
Yeah. And
it seemed, it worked pretty well to be like, well, this is what I want in the future. What do you want in the future? So,
and it helped that we aligned quite closely on so much stuff. We clearly fit together quite well, that we wanted the same things out of life.
Yeah.
And therefore talking about, hypothetical futures that involved marriage and kids, that was quite comfortable to both of us.
Yes, yeah. We didn't have to have, because I always find it, you see on Mumsnet and things where it's like years down the line, they go, oh, we finally started talking about kids, and he doesn't want kids and I do. And I always go, how didn't they have that conversation like way earlier.
It's like one of the more, first conversations we had when things were getting more serious. For me, there was, I think I've talked openly on the podcast before about, I'm a bit of a weird one that I don't feel things very easily. And like, I'm a bit muted in terms of that. So I had a real difficulty in working out like, what does love feel like? And do I love you? What is that? Like,
whereas I'm like an opposite person.
Yeah.
It's when they always go, who said I love you? As I'm like, I did.
Yeah, way
sooner.
earlier.
But I know it sounds silly, but I was never insulted because I'm quite a naturally loving person.
Yeah.
So like,
you basically say it to anyone.
I love no. But I have love for a lot of people.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't feel that big a deal.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
whereas to me, I was like,
I
will never say I love you until I really mean it. And that is like a lifelong commitment.
Yes.
So saying that out loud, see, I'm a bit weird, aren't I?
You're a bit of a weirdo.
Yeah. So that brings us to our kind of engagement story.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting.
It is. And you had a lot of sneaky little help from Kirsty.
So we had all sorts going on. One of the things that I wanted to try and do was involve in some way each of your identical quadruplet sisters in the process.
Which was a very sweet call.
I tried to, make things mean things, if that makes sense. Everything kind of I did for a reason. We were living in different houses at the time, so we hadn't moved in yet. And so that presented a challenge in terms of how do I find out your ring size?
Yeah, true.
So I think I did in your sleep measure your ring finger with one of those little plastic things. But I had to be so careful not to wake you up.
Because I'm quite a light sleeper, really.
That I wasn't 100% sure I'd got it right. So I enlisted Kirsty's help, and she, at the time, was also living at home with you. So she was in the same place. And so can't remember what she did.
Mum was getting a new wedding ring.
Oh, there was this convoluted...
So, Kirsty, because Mum, I don't know what happened to her old one. It either wasn't thing. So we'd got a ring measure, and Mum wasn't in on it. Mum generally wanted a new wedding ring.
Yeah.
And Kirsty was
This is so sneaky. I'd forgotten this. I'm very impressed with Kirsty.
Mum's finger. And then Kirsty was like, let's measure our fingers. Let's see what we are. And I was like, yeah, how fun.
What I love throughout this whole thing is you were completely oblivious.
Oh, yeah.
And I find it hilarious because we both knew that this was coming in the sense that, we had no doubt that we would get engaged.
Oh, yeah, but I
never had a thing that I ever thought, I knew you would say yes.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, you didn't seem to anticipate that I would be planning anything.
Well, because I thought, it'll happen whenever. I think because I didn't see there was going to be, particularly a rush or anything. It wasn't like we were going on a big holiday, because I think that's when a lot of women know if you're like, oh, they're going on a big fancy holiday, maybe something's going to happen. Whereas we were living our lives quite normally.
Yeah.
So I was just like, well, it'll happen whenever it happens. I think I just didn't feel pressure.
So when Kirsty did this thing, it didn't raise any red flags for you.
But this is when my family's very odd, in that for us we're like, oh, well, that was really interesting that I've got such a skinny finger and this person doesn't. It's quite easy in that sense to make us all join in something. And I was impressed you asked Dad.
Yeah. I did ask your dad permission.
Yeah?
I basically was like, well, I'm gonna ask her, but I would like to ask your permission as well, in a kind of traditional way.
And I think Dad liked that.
Your dad always has this funny joke because
he does.
Back at the time, even
still now.
Even now, I'm just thinking how long it's been going on, but I basically am like the family hairdresser.
Oh, yeah.
So I started, I can't remember when, at some point, to save money, I cut my own hair.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of clippers. And then since then, everyone in the family was like, oh, if you do it yourself, you could cut all our hair. And I was like, okay. I mean, I'm not a professional. I've kind of just worked out what to do with my hair, but sure. Yeah. So I've been cutting your dad's hair. And at the time, we'd gone in the kitchen alone to cut his hair.
Yeah.
And I'd done that. And so your dad likes to have this joke where basically he's like, I threatened him with scissors. I was still holding at the time the scissors pointing at him going can I marry your daughter?
Yeah.
At the...
He always goes, well, I had to say yes, because I feared for my life. Yes, so it's his joke he loves to tell now.
Yeah. I couldn't involve Becky and Laura to the same extent because obviously they were like in different locations, but I did try to like vary in, you know, a kind of nominal way. So I think I sought Laura's advice on what to have on the engraving on the ring and what that should say. And what was it for Becky?
You asked what to say in French.
Oh, that was it.
Because he proposed in French. Because obviously that's one of the languages I do.
So this is where there was all sorts going on. So okay, so let's try and do this sensibly. I'd had it all planned out. I had this grand idea. We were going to go to this location where there's this lovely waterfall. Yeah. It's like secluded little kind of spot where we could drive to. It was kind of equidistant between our two houses where we lived at the time. It was kind of slightly down in Yorkshire in Swaledale, which kind of had a meaning and a significance to you at the farm.
So we had Swaledale sheep, if people know what kind of sheep that is.
So I thought it'd be this nice little day out. I'd planned this kind of... not treasure hunt, what do you call it? Like a scavenger kind of thing where there were like little clues and things that I thought I'd make a fun little day out of it and we'd go and then I'd propose when we were there. The big flaw in my plan was like I'd taken time off work and set out a specific weekend. It was in the run up to your birthday, I think. So the idea was that the way I would convince you was that this was all part of like a birthday celebration. Yeah. But it was a bizarre year where even though it was early March, we had snow.
Terrible
snow. And because we were either side of the Pennines, we couldn't get to each other. No. And like I'd taken this time off work and I was sat at home like pretty depressed. Like I can't, like there were no roads I could get to.
No roads were open.
Like the road was closed. And I was like, I'm sat here. This was the day I was going to propose to Emma. And like, I'm binge watching stuff on TV.
I was quite annoyed because it's my birthday.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see him.
Yeah. So then every day afterwards, I was like checking the roads. Even if we could meet, it was then, well, maybe it's gonna scupper my plans of where we go. Yeah. So then I came up with like several backup locations of where we could go and do it and work out. But you know, oh dear. So that was a bit stressful. Yeah. But eventually,
we got there.
We met up. In the end, you know, it was on Mothering Sunday.
Yes.
And my mum had come to visit. And we'd gone to church in the morning. Yeah. I didn't want to wait anymore. Like, I was so ready.
It was like, I'm done waiting.
Like, this might not be the perfect time. It might not be the perfect day. But so I'd, like, explained to my mum. And so she was then said, okay, this afternoon you go off and do that. Yeah. So she was very excited. Again, I really don't know how you didn't suspect anything, that this was a rather odd thing one Sunday afternoon to go, right, we're going to go off randomly. And do this thing now.
I thought it was part of my birthday thing because we hadn't seen each other. And I was also like, they probably don't want to go for a walk. Like, it's been a busy day.
It's still icy and snowy out.
Yeah.
We got to this waterfall. It was a little bit more...
just before that, I'm pretty sure I told my old teacher. And I was going to talk to her, and you were like, no, we don't have time. And I remember the time being like, we're walking, of course we've got time. And he was really kind of like trying to... And that was a little bit suspicious, but it was more because I thought he was like unsociable. He's like, oh, I don't want to talk to this teacher that Emma used to know. But I remember looking back, it was very funny that he was obviously like, please stop. Like, I'm trying to get you somewhere to propose. I don't want to stand and talk to this lady for ages.
This is where things should have got really suspicious, but I think because I'm so weird...
He's so odd.
...that you really didn't think... So I laid out a blanket as if we we're going to have a picnic. Yeah. And I said, well, let's stand in front of the waterfall. Why don't we take a picture together? Yeah. So I set up a tripod and a camera.
But I was like, he's really into photography. You know, that's the kind of things he likes to do.
I was like, let's just stand together in front of this camera in the waterfall. Yeah. And this is going to be lovely. Yeah. And then I got down on one knee and... proposed. It was a bit of a blur, really. Like, I kind of had an idea that I would say something, but in the end, I was just, my brain was just so frazzled by it all.
You did say the right thing in French. I can't remember what it was.
I said the right thing in French as I'd hoped to do, because I was like, you know, this is a romantic thing. I'll say it in French.
Responding, I just took the ring and put it on my finger.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh yeah, cool.
You were straight in there. You were like, right, ring, finger.
That's
it.
You.
That's done. But then it got a bit funny because, like, I think you said yes, but you replied in French.
Oh, yeah, yes, I said oui, yeah.
Because I'd asked in
But
French.
obviously, his dyslexic brain took a
My
second.
brain could not, because I was expecting to hear a yes. My brain couldn't process. So I stayed on one knee being like, has she said yes? What's going on? I'm not sure. Has she responded? I don't know what's going on. And then I was like, oh, no, hang on. No, she has said yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, let's briefly touch upon the ring as well, because that's a bit different.
Oh, yeah, true.
We didn't buy an expensive engagement ring. We were a bit wacky. I mean, again, if you know us, maybe this isn't surprising.
And this is primarily my fault. It's not even to do with him.
Well, I was pretty into it.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
that's true. He wasn't against it.
So it was kind of a like commercial consumerism thing where we didn't want to spend like £1,500 on a ring. No offense if that's your thing and you did that, or you know, whatever. We just at the time felt like that was a waste of money.
And I've always had a thing, from being small, I don't know why, that I wanted a wooden engagement ring. I didn't want a metal one.
Yeah. Cool. We're quite unique, aren't you? It feels. I think you felt like a jeweled ring was just.
Well,
like
it wasn't
what
very
everyone
me,
gets,
really.
And it wasn't you, and like you wanted something more naturey.
Yeah, because I'm quite naturey. We like our woodland walks.
So I'd got this wooden ring from a guy in Scotland who hand carves wooden rings, and it's inlaid with kind of glittery shells.
Yeah,
the shells
it's
themselves,
like Alabone shell,
kind of greeny,
like turquoisey
colour that kind of reflects. One thing is, though, with wood, is they're a lot wider. That made sizing quite difficult.
Yes, I can imagine that.
I remember my mum had taken me to a jeweller's to like get their expert advice, and they basically were trying to convince me that it was a terrible idea. A, to get a wooden ring, B, to order it without first seeing it, and C, to order it without without your measure, like, because I'd got your kind of rough measurements and I'd not gone and sized the ring.
True.
But yeah, it all works well,
did,
really.
Well done, little man.
There we go. We've talked a long time about that. Let's try and move on. Because we'd
It's a long story, though.
There's so much we could talk about. Because then, of course, there's our wedding.
Yeah.
We were engaged for 2 years.
Yeah.
We weren't in a rush to set a date for a wedding. But then
I remember it was the first thing as soon as we got engaged, people were like, so when are you getting married? And I'm really like, I have no idea.
We did set a date, and then we're working towards getting married, and we've touched on this before, I think, in conversations, and quite a number of you will know some of the story of this, about our wedding was cancelled because it fell during lockdown.
Yeah.
So we had to, I mean, it wasn't even postponed. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
What we'd planned with the venue, with everyone coming. And so, lockdown happened. We waited for months. We've got a whole vlog about this whole story that details the ups and downs. This is a really long story.
It is.
But eventually, at the first opportunity with lockdown rules that enabled us to get married, because we're a bit wacky. We chose to get married in Scotland, outside by a lock.
Yeah.
And once we were able to do that, it was confusing and complicated to work out if we could, because how many people could come? Were we allowed to travel? Were you legally allowed to get married? But the rules in England and the rules in Scotland were different. Yeah. So it was like, well, we can now officially get married in Scotland, but are we legally allowed to drive to Scotland?
Yes, is that allowed?
Yeah, so, whatever. But eventually we did. So our wedding was meant to be in April. It got cancelled in early July. Yeah. We managed to travel up with just 8 of us. Yeah. You, me, both our parents, your sister and partner. Yeah. And we got married, not exactly where we were intending to, but still not far, on the same lock on the shores. My dad married us.
Yeah, that was nice.
Outside. We wore our wellies.
We did. Which we were going to wear all along.
Yeah. This was all part of our kind of rusticy wedding that, yeah.
Kirsty and her now husband had made us a cake with, if people know, Wally and Eve on the top of it.
Always been into Disney.
Yeah.
It's so funny, looking, back at our photos and things, because it was still in the pandemic, in COVID.
Oh, yeah.
So we were all socially distanced.
Yeah.
So in all the photos, we look like we're out of, some old-fashioned thing where we're all stood
quite Victorian.
Yeah, formally with big gaps between us in our formal kind of clothes. I quite like it in a way. It's quite different and quite funny. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, the journey and thing was stressful. There's, it was difficult, but that day was actually really nice.
It was,
and
yeah.
I don't think really we could have hoped for a better wedding
No.
day. Wedding days themselves, I think, can be quite stressful, and we've not experienced our own as
No.
intended with, all the guests. But if we were to, be honest and choose what we would have liked, I think actually the really small, intimate thing. I mean, it was a shame that, both of our best friends couldn't be there. My best man, Luke and Rachel, they
couldn't come.
So that was really sad.
But
like the intimacy and just the little personal nature of it, I think really suited us.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think in hindsight, I don't know if I'd want a big wedding. Some people once COVID stopped, they'd have their big wedding later.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt no need to do that afterwards.
We did sort of, compromise.
We did.
When Lily was 1, was she?
Yes, yeah.
We had her dedication, so a bit like a christening, and we combined that with a celebration party for our wedding.
Yes,
so we re-invited all our wedding guests and said, come along and let's do a joint celebration, so that we could offer something to the people that couldn't be there.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got hiccups now. No, and that was nice too, because it was like an extra celebration, but it was also a celebration of Lily, so it didn't feel like it was like a second wedding. We better get on to how relationships changed.
Yeah, shall we, since having kids, because that's the next big step, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
We got engaged, we got married, there's all sorts of stories in between, but really the big milestones.
Well, I'd say, and we're also quite quite easygoing.
Yeah.
So once we were living together, people would go, "Oh, there's going to be loads of problems." We're like, there wasn't, because we're both very...
Yeah, we fitted in quite easily. We've never had a lot of big arguments.
No.
Then we had Lily.
Yeah.
So we had a child about a year after we got married. And...
Which that is actually quite typical Christians. We didn't book any trends there.
Do you think having children has changed our relationship?
I think it has slightly, and I think it makes you a lot closer. I think giving birth to the other person seeing you giving birth is I know you've been intimate and everything before, but it's a much more intimate situation when you're seeing that person go through ranges of pain, and you have to really trust the other person to do everything.
Yeah.
And obviously I had a C-section last time. I'm probably going to have one this time. Having someone care for you when you're in that state is really you're quite vulnerable. So I think that's made everyone a lot closer, really. Because you have to be much more... I know you have to be a team beforehand, but when you've got kids, you really have to be a team.
Yeah. It's different, isn't it? I think, as is quite typical, there were more arguments and more fights we had. It did strain us more.
Well, they say, in the first 2 years of having a baby, a lot of couples divorce.
Really?
Because it's such a stressful time.
It is stressful, isn't it?
And I think, because I warned my sisters about this, because Kirsty was like, "Oh, what's the biggest thing?" And I was like, "You will fight more."
Yeah.
But I said that's because you're both exhausted.
Yeah.
So things just get to you more. And I was like, and it can be about nothing. I remember one day me and Elliot had the most ridiculous argument about who was louder at walking and who would wake up the baby. And I
don't remember this.
I remember being like, this is such a ridiculous argument. And I was like...
Who was louder at walking?
Yeah, because you were like, "Oh, you're so loud when you walk up the stairs." I'm like, "I am not. You're way louder than me." And then we were walking up and down the stairs trying to be the quieter person, being like, "Look, I'm so quiet." Because we were accusing each other of waking up the baby loudly.
Yeah.
And I remember in hindsight going, that is a hilarious but ridiculous argument. Why were we arguing who walks louder?
Yeah. We had all the typical things where we were kind of fighting over who had got up more in the night. It'd be keeping tallies of I've been up such and such with the baby.
Well, I was up at this time too. You weren't up there.
Yeah, it's your turn. You need to do this now.
Yeah. And then I'd bring my trump card out going well, I've had abdominal surgery.
Yeah.
And he'd always go, "You always do that kind of." Well, I have. But I could say the height of romance then was if you'd got a bottle ready for the other one. That was oh, they're so kind. They've got it, so I just have to heat the water and put it in.
Aww.
They've done everything else.
Yeah.
I was the things that I find romantic at that point are really simple.
It's like the whole love languages thing, isn't it? It's there's debate about how much that's actually a useful thing of whatever, but I think a lot of it does change to being then a practical thing of offering, that's how we're showing love to each other, by doing practical things for one another, because that's what's most useful at that time.
And when you're really tired, that means a lot.
We don't have the opportunity to do anything else. Like,
No.
we can't go out and have time together. We can't spend time together. We can't be intimate. We can't do all sorts of things that like would keep you close in a relationship, that would help you stick together. And so in some ways it feels like you're kind of pulling apart a little bit, but needing to really work together. And I think that's a real challenge.
Yeah. That's why I think the little acts really helped.
It pushed me back into like where we weren't great with the communicating again.
Yeah.
I think where up until that point we'd always been quite good at communicating. I think at this point then, with the tiredness and everything, like there was a lot of stuff where I kind of was like, oh well, I won't mention this, and like I'll keep I won't express my feelings on this because it's difficult, because I know like you're going through a lot as well, but then equally that kind of keeping it back, it wasn't helpful in terms of then kind of feeling resentment that you're doing more than the other partner, and maybe that's imagined and maybe it's not, but either way you need to talk about it.
Whichever person you are, you always feel like you're doing more.
Yeah.
And I was like, and sometimes factually I know I wouldn't have done that much that day, but I'd be like, I'm so tired. Does he not realise how tired I am today?
I think we are stronger as a result of it, though.
I think we are, definitely,
We kind of settled into this parenting thing. I don't know. It's just different, isn't it? I almost feel like we were different people back then.
Well, I think this is why, like, they often say you have to grow together rather than, like, some people aren't growing apart.
Yeah.
And it's important to, like, you are going to change who you are as a person as you get older, but as long as you're growing, like, in the same direction, that's fine. So.
Yeah. I think I saw, like, a quote or something about this somewhere at one point, and I really loved that idea of, like, the commitment to each other isn't to stay the same. You're committing to someone constantly changing, and you constantly changing, and to like that's part of what you know. And we've not been great at making time for ourselves.
No.
Like we've not done a load of romantic stuff since having kids. No, I don't know if like
we've been on like a couple of date nights,
like whether people manage to by this stage or not, I don't know. Like, and again, we're going to be back into a newborn phase, so it's going to be a while before but I'm hoping at some point we can get back into doing stuff.
It'll be better in some ways, which sounds ridiculous, because I'll actually be staying up with the baby, which means maybe once the baby's asleep, we can actually sit and watch something together.
That's true. Recently, like,
because at the minute I'm so tired, I just go to sleep after Lily does. I like put Lily to bed.
So we don't spend any time together. So on a night, I'm sat just by myself
working, and I'm like, I'm going to bed now.
We sleep in different beds
because I'm so big.
Yeah,
it's not comfortable.
I think to be honest, I think pregnancy is almost harder on our relationship than having the baby. Basically, we're covering all of the different like challenges and things that we cover on the podcast. Whenever we record, we like to talk about the struggles and the reality of parenthood, and all those things basically just play into why it's difficult in our relationship when you have kids, because all those challenges often are kind of just barriers and things that make it difficult and
stop you in time together.
Just all of it really. So it's all a big challenge. I don't know that we have advice or... Well,
we've constantly gone through, you've just got to be honest with each other.
Yeah, that seems to be the best thing.
Seems the best thing. Which, I mean, sometimes you're quite harsh to each other.
But you're really good, because you'll tell me how it is. Like I
will,
know, like a lot of women often like hint at things to men or try and assume in an argument a man's gonna get the message.
I don't do that.
No.
So if people know me, I'm quite blunt. If he's doing something that I'm like, that's not reasonable. I will just say that's not reasonable.
We've never had like a conversation or I mean, I don't think our arguments are really.
No. Well, we never shout at each other. Yeah, it's not what we do.
Yeah, but when we've had awkward conversations, I've never come out going like, I really don't know why Emma's upset. I don't know what I've done wrong. I don't know,
No, I make it very clear why I'm upset.
Yeah.
And I don't know where, because I don't know if my parents do that particularly, but I think I've always been like, well, it's better to just tell him how it is. Because I think a lot of, even my sisters, they try and tell their partners or husbands, but they try and tell it in a nice way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't often work because I think the person, it's almost done so nicely, the person goes, oh, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. Whereas I think sometimes you've really just got to spell it out as, this is the issue, shall we come to a solution?
I think we're both quite stubborn,
We are.
which
yeah.
plays a lot into our relationship. So like, rather than just saying, we will call each other's bluff.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's not like I'll take over the job and be like, oh, no.
it's not like you'll tell me to do something and then when I don't do it, you do it anyway.
Yeah, no. I'll be like, well, that's his job.
Yeah. And the same with me.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Because especially as a mum, your hormones are going crazy when the baby's crying. But at the same time, I was like, you just need to be calm. Because often, once again, I know I can calm down. It's like with Lily. I know I can calm her down quicker. I know with the baby, I'll be able to calm them down quicker. But that means the other person will never learn how to do it quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to sit there and go, I'm meant to be relaxing in bed. Like, this isn't my focus. This isn't my job. Just sit there. And it is torturous because you want to go help your baby. But you've got to sit there and go, I trust the other person can do that job.
This is where
baby.
we work well in some ways, in that, as you've described. In some ways, this is where there is some friction between us because sometimes we have opposing thoughts on, are we doing something for short-term relief or long-term gain? Yeah. Like sometimes you're just like, well, let's just, and this is the case throughout, like with Lily now, with when you have a baby, at any point when there's something, and it's like sometimes you're just like, well, let's just do this because this will sort things out now.
Yeah,
and that's fine. And I'm like, no, this is going to set a bad habit. We need to think long term, and think like a bit of pain now, and we might be able to make progress.
Yeah, which is true. We discussed this yesterday.
Yeah,
when Elliot was like, when I say no to Lily, you need to also say no.
This has been my recent complaint that I've expressed to Emma.
Yep.
That recently Emma's just been saying yes everything to Lily, and like, understandable. You're pregnant. You don't want to do everything. We want an easy life.
I think often I'm so tired. I'm just like, sure.
I've been saying no to Lily, so she'll come to me and I'll say no, and then she'll go to you and you say yes.
Yeah, true.
And I go, you've got to back me up. But there we go. We should really wrap things up. This conversation's getting out of hand. As usual, we're going on and on and on. We like to chat. I mean, this is it, isn't it? Like we don't have much space to like talk to one another.
That's why I really like the podcast.
So this is why we basically do the podcast for ourselves, so we get to chat. It's been nice reminiscing about our past and our story and taking us out of reality for a moment. looking back before we go forward.
Yeah, true. And it was really cute. The other day we showed Lily like our wedding video.
Yeah.
And she made herself a little veil with a little what was it? Tissue.
Yeah.
And she like put clips on it to put on her head. Yeah, but that was nice showing her it.
Yeah, it's sweet.
But I thought it was nice because we did film it, even though it was in lockdown and outside, that we can share it with the children. Like,
I think that is, I'm quite into all this tech stuff and recording a lot of our story. And even with this podcast, we've got a record of a lot of stuff that will be quite interesting to go back to at a later date and listen.
We might have to listen to like hints we gave ourselves back.
Yeah,
the baby
we might need to go back and listen. I mean, we weren't doing the podcast when we first had Lily.
No.
So, but yeah, I wonder some of the early ones. Especially, we did an episode on surviving the first week with a newborn. I think we need to listen to that.
I think we should listen to that
See if we had any good tips. We'll have to do an update. But yeah, we'll be back very soon with more episodes when the baby's here.
Yeah.
And we'll update you on how it's going.
Yeah.
And do an episode on how we are surviving with a newborn.
Or not. Maybe we're really struggling.
We can update you on how our relationship's going.
Yeah, maybe it's all going to be downhill.
I mean, these conversations are quite light-hearted and fun, and like we try to bounce off each other with our, that we are married, and that's part of hopefully what makes this podcast a bit different to other shows. But maybe it's going to turn into us just ranting at each other. Like,
it'll be like passive aggressive.
I was up 5 times last night.
How many times were you up? Well, I remember, sorry, this is going on again. Somebody said they used to have like a scoreboard. So they'd go up and do a line on it to say when they'd been up at night. But then I was like, I know I'd be tempted to cheat. Like, I know.
that didn't even occur to me.
Like, I know as much as like, I can't lie. I could put extra lines on the board.
Emma, that is despicable.
When somebody said it, I was like, in my head, like, would nobody just put a few extra lines on?
On that note that gives us an insight into the mind of Emma, let's close things off. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this rambling thing and got to know us a bit better. You have been listening to Don't wake the baby. Sleep well. God bless.
Good night.
Bye.